Right. Yeah. Good afternoon. Welcome to our session on what community really is or means. I'm Dave, and this is my everything friend, Ava. We live together, practice together here at Clear Sky. So Ava's going to say a lot more about what that means. To give you, well, first of all, hello everyone. Hope you're doing well. Hi, Anna and Tucker, Morgan. If you're able to, as you're able to come off camera, since it's a community discussion, that's great to have that live human contact as much as you're able. We did book this session to be 40 minutes just because sometimes the hour can be a bit full, so it'll be a dense 40 minutes, but gives you a bit of space on the other side of things. We're going to, just to let everyone know, we are recording this session and transcribing it so others who can't make the time can watch the video later on. Ava's going to give an introduction to our community, Clear Sky Center up here in the Rocky Mountains of BC, Canada, our teachers and our community, and a brief history of that. Then we're going to have a quick visualization about what community means to each of us before we dive into a little mini interview of each other to ask each other some questions to share what our community experience has been and how we've grown through that. And then we're going to lead a whiteboard session to share some notes on community and what that means, what we want to see in community, each of us. And then we'll have some open discussion for 10, 15 minutes, depending on how our timing goes. So we'll introduce ourselves a bit more as we go through, but I'll pass it off to Ava to do a bit of background on Clear Sky and our wonderful community.
Sure. Thanks, Dave. Welcome, Michael. Thank you for joining us. I will share my screen and, as Dave said, give an introduction. That, as he said, we are joining you from Clear Sky Meditation Center. We are a residential retreat center resting on 310 acres in the Canadian Rocky Mountains. And we're really fortunate to be situated in the Yellowstone to Yukon Wildlife Corridor, which is also known as the Serengeti of North America. So we are really lucky to be part of a very rich biodiversity here. So Clear Sky, as I said, we're a residential community. We have 10 residents that live here, so a community of practitioners from around the world. In fact, only half of our residents were born in Canada. Everyone else moved here from abroad to be part of Clear Sky. And then we also have a very rich and vibrant online community as well that try to get here as often as they can. And um, so we are a registered nonprofit. We offer online private retreats, group retreats, and we were founded by Kapal Doug Duncan, who just passed away this in October, and Catherine Poisrat Sensei. And gosh, they're really masters at helping people awaken in this lifetime and become the change that they want to see in the world. And I think Dave and I can both confidently say that we feel like living embodiments of that after 8 years of working directly with them. And so their teachings are rooted in Buddhist philosophy, Western mysteries, and they simultaneously draw on contemporary tools, research, and practices. And hey, that's some of us. And so we're really dedicated to co-creating a modern monastery where we prioritize our spiritual life while also being involved in the world through running a meditation center, having careers, relationships, exploring science, psychology, eco-restoration, nature-based practices, and more as solutions-based approaches for addressing eco-anxiety, health challenges, and really helping support planetary healing, something that I think we all agree is so vital in today's world. And I'll just let in Arthur. Welcome, Arthur. Thank you for joining us. I'm just giving an introduction to Clear Sky Meditation Center, where Dave and I have both lived for the past 8 years. So really, we're a center where people can come and reconnect with their aspirations in this lifetime. What does it mean to be human? They can integrate their shadow, reconnect with nature, and learn tools for living and working with others that this is what we're really excited about, that they can then take home with them to their current communities, or maybe there's a community you're wanting to start your own community. And I have a um, lovely quote from this is from Capel's final public teaching. This was at our 20th anniversary in September, and he said, I just love this quote. He said, "Here at Clear Sky, we're trying to provide a light for seekers who want to forge into the unknown and make their spiritual practice wider and broader than it has been in a very long time, to include and transcend. Not everyone can live and work in community yet, and many serious practitioners do not have access to a center that allows for this new path. So for those that need a place to call their spiritual home while building their own version wherever they are, wherever you live, we hope and intend to provide a reference point, a beacon, a light, a satellite, a place to rejuvenate, to be inspired, to give you encouragement and motivation to go to your various places where you might live and build your centers with that kind of understanding." Those are two of our resident horses, and one of them is actually pregnant, so we might have another horse any day now. And then this is from a photo from our food forest where we were having a lovely outdoor dinner and dance in the summer. And I just wanted to share, yesterday I wrote down, well, what does community mean to me after living here? And so I thought this kind of helped encapsulate what it means to actually be living in conscious community. So for me, community is a group of people who, given the choice in advance, you may not have chosen to be friends with. And yet you find yourself inextricably bound by a common vision and purpose. Community are the people who, lovingly, yet not always skillfully, manage to push all your buttons. They are the people you can't escape when you'd rather go to your room, close the door, and lock out the world for a while. And yet, community are the people who are there in poor health, unemployment, and existential crisis. A conscious shift from placing the majority of your needs on a nuclear dyad to an embodied celebration of Indra's web. Community makes life more vibrant, more fun, and more meaningful. They are there with a forgiving hug on your bad hair days, when you make a big mistake, or when you accidentally expose the shadowy sides of yourself that you have worked so hard to hide all your life. And they do this because, above all else, conscious awakening community does everything in its power to help you transcend you and your suffering. Community are the people who are with you because you don't feel like you have a choice. You have scoured the planet, the heavens, and all the unexamined corners of your being, and you have yet to find a group of people that you would rather spend this precious human birth with. And they do all this while simultaneously looking at the planet and asking, how can we help? And so if you want to learn more, today's a bit of an intro. And actually, Catherine Poisserat Sensei, one of our founding teachers, she's going to be diving much more deeply into this tomorrow morning. So if you want to explore this topic further, then I would definitely encourage that you check that out. But in the meantime, I'm going to hand it over to Dave.
Great. Thanks, Ava, for that wonderful history. Welcome to a few new faces who's joined us since. Hello, Carla, Arthur, Chris. Benjamin may have joined in the last few minutes. Nice to see you all. If you're able to join us off camera, that's wonderful for the community discussion. If you're unable to, that's fine. Hope you can enjoy anyways. Well, with that wonderful introduction from Ava and that wonderful quote from Capel about, we're one model of community and there are many other models. So we like to think we're doing a pretty good job and we have lots to learn. There's lots of other forms. So I'd like to take you all through a quick visualization about what community might mean to you. I should have mentioned this earlier. If you have a pen, scrap paper, or even just somewhere you can type a couple notes for what comes up, that's fantastic. It'll be very short. And just invite everyone to get comfortable, whatever that means for you. This will just be a minute or two. Close your eyes and take just a couple, 3 deep breaths into your hara or down into your abdomen in some way and just start to get centered for a moment. And you can just keep your eyes closed while you settle into your body and feel the floor beneath your feet. just to get some contact. Right. And we're going to visualize what community means to you. So think about your dream community. So ignore any current obstacles or barriers in your life. None of those are present, but you're creating the world from scratch. You've got a paintbrush or your choice tool for creation and start to visualize what this community is. So you can start to imagine what kind of location you're in. For example, is it urban? Is it rural? Is it on a mountain, in a field, in a forest? Is there water nearby? Any other elements of the natural environment? You can start to imagine who's there. That could be specific people that you know or would want to live with. It could be just generic types of people. How many people are there? What kinds of ages and diversity of people are you with? And then start to imagine how you live and what you might do together. What kind of activities, work, spiritual practices, meals are you sharing or not sharing? What kind of spaces do you have collectively or on your own? And again, this is your dream. There's no right or wrong answer. It's whatever's in your heart and mind right now about what your dream community is from where you sit now. I'll just take another 20, 30 seconds to keep visualizing or dreaming what this community might be. You can add any more elements in your mind about the location, buildings. Are you growing food? Are you running a business together? These are just some of many ideas that might happen. Are there animals? How does your community interact with the world around you? Is there a community of communities that your community is a part of? Okay, and if your eyes are closed, you can open them and just take 30 seconds to jot down if anything in particular stood out to you. If not, you don't have to write anything down, but it might be helpful just to write some notes on what came up for you or draw a little quick little image or
Or
some
even
keywords.
drop it in the chat. Would be
Yeah,
awesome.
thanks, Ava. Yeah, you could, if there's some highlights, please share those in the chat would be great. Wonderful. So we're going to move on to sharing a bit more in depth about the community experiences that Ava and I have had while living here at Clear Sky for the last 8 years. To take you on a bit of a journey and let you know where we're coming from, so you know what our perspectives are. So, Ava.
Well, before we dive in,
Oh yeah.
actually, I have a question for the group.
Oh
I'd
yeah.
love to know, maybe just a show of hands or drop it in the chat, who currently is, first we'll say who currently is living in a community right now, whatever that means to you. So it's just a show of hands, or you can drop it in the chat. Who's currently living in community? We have James. Okay. Um, and who is seeking community? Who's looking for community? Nice. Oh, wow. Look at that. Neat. Oh, special.
Just about everyone.
Awesome. Oh, thanks, Tucker. Tucker's at Pachamama in Costa Rica currently. Oh, that
Oh,
sounds
wonderful.
beautiful. Wonderful. Anyway, sorry to
No,
interrupt,
great
but I
question.
just was like, oh, wait, I want to know who are we talking to
Yeah,
today?
wonderful.
Get to meet everybody.
Yeah, perfect. Thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah, good. So there's a couple other folks here who live in community that might have some perspective to share, and a lot of people who would like to be. So hopefully we can help everyone get a couple steps closer.
Mhm.
So yeah, Ava, you've been here for 8 years. How did you end up living in community, and what are some of the enriching experiences or a main struggle that you've overcome while being
Sure.
here that you'd like to share?
Thanks. Um, well, I mean, I was really at a place where I was suffering, to keep it brief. I was suffering with trying to fit into the status quo and really saw the suffering planetarily and wanted to become part of a solution. I didn't know what that meant at the time, but I just knew that I was seeking something different, something else. And by chance, found myself here at Clear Sky on retreat. And first of all, I just graduated from one of the leading universities here in Canada, and I just graduated and I show up here and they were teaching what I had just been learning in university around communication and team building. Lo and behold, they were teaching it here for a lot cheaper. And there's no exams. Um, and so at first I opted to stay on for I was like, okay, I'll stay here for 2 months and then I'll know everything that I need to know about how to be a fully embodied human being. And then I had to extend that to 6 months. And then I had to extend that to a year. And then I realized that, oh my gosh, actually awakening in community, when you know, it's a lifelong journey. So that's what brought me here. And I mean, in terms of the joys, I mean, well, I guess in short, because we wanted to keep today, as Dave said, we wanted to keep today's session short. And so gosh, I got to talk faster. I feel like a human again, and I feel awe, and I feel nourished and healthy, and I feel connected. And so I would say that's for me, yeah, one of the biggest joys. And the challenges, it's very painful to be able to get to this place. It's been a lot of work, unpacking, we draw on a lot of training here, shadow integration, to unpack childhood conditioning, to unpack our unconscious patterns, to unpack a billion-dollar marketing industry that is telling us we need a lot of other things that might not actually be in our best interest. And so, but I would not trade it for anything. So, yeah.
Right. Thanks. One thing we talk a lot about at Clear Sky is that we develop what we've called a hybrid model. So how do you hold a dedicated spiritual meditation practice and live in a monastic setting, but still have a life out in the world? That might include careers or relationships or hobbies.
Great question, Dave. That is an ongoing learning and evolution. So one thing to note that we really draw on here at Clear Sky, well, first of all, as Dave said, yeah, so we do have a very dedicated meditation practice, which I don't know if it would be possible to do community without that foundation, just in my experience, because community, getting along with others can get a little bit sticky. And so, especially when you're meeting people that you don't know. So that's really the foundation. Having the teachers here and keeping us focused on a common vision is so important. And so we do that through daily group meditations. We are required to do 2 weeks of meditation retreats every year. Gosh, tough life. And then we don't have any. I think one of the important things here is that we really embrace karma yoga or selfless service as a path here for supporting the hybrid model. So we don't have paid staff, and we also a lot of centers can have, a big donor that supports the center, and we don't do that here. And we do that in the sense that it really then all of us have to be financially sustainable on our own, which we have found to be very valuable because then it negates resentments, or it negates well, first, and we're empowered to leave if maybe you reach a point in your life where you're like, actually this isn't for me anymore, then you're in a place where financially you are able to leave if you decide to do that. And also, for someone like me, I could spend my whole life just being alone off in the mountains, meditating and avoiding my career. But it's kind of holding me back from being a well-rounded human being and showing up in spaces like this and meeting amazing people like you all. So yeah, it's very so that's how we balance it, by just having careers with an active meditation practice. In short, I'm already I have like 1 minute for my next question, so I'm gonna stop there.
Lots of great things to talk about. Yeah, last question for Ava. So what's the importance of shadow integration for developing self and community in your experience?
Right. Well, shadow integration. So basically what that means when we say shadow integration, it's that we look at those unconscious messy, uncomfortable, vulnerable sides of ourselves and really draw on that to um, help co-create a more healthy and thriving community. I don't think that you could do community without looking at the shadow. You might be able to find a group of like-minded people that you get along well with, and it might work for a certain amount of time. But at some point, if everyone's just getting along all the time, then someone is going to be repressing something, and that's going to come out either directly or indirectly at some point. And so, what we've learned here is we really address money, sex, and power as those are kind of the key areas where the shadow can come out, especially when you're working so closely with others in co-creating a community. So for example, one of our community members, Karen McAllister, she works directly with people's money shadow. And so she draws on the Jungian archetypes. So, maybe someone's a martyr and they're just always giving and giving and giving, but then maybe it's at the sacrifice of their own financial sustainability. Or maybe someone is more of the innocent archetype, and so they just kind of get foggy around money and numbers make them confused and uncomfortable, which is, I mean, that's normal for a lot of people. And if we stay in that place, then we're really holding ourselves back from having a sense of empowerment around our finances. And it's also outsourcing it to some people in the community to be carrying the financial piece, to be carrying the financial stresses. And so here, because we are all involved in the finances and all involved in working with our money shadow, then we're able to be holding just a bit of that together and coming up, co-creating solutions together of, okay, how do we create a sustainable model where we can live together and have lives and businesses. And then lastly, I think it's also important to note that when we say that we work with sex, gosh, that can get a lot of projections. And so just to name that, by no means are people, when they come here, encouraged or expected to be engaging in any sort of sexual activity. And in fact, some community members here are celibate. And as human beings, not everyone chooses that path. And so if a community doesn't learn to empower a sense of agency around our bodies, our desires, our decision making, our ability to communicate that, then it can really lead to unnecessary suffering or assumptions, or it can just come out sideways. And so what we do here is that a lot of centers, because there's a lot of sex scandals and there's a lot of suffering happening right now around when there's power dynamics and just bringing people together with different backgrounds, then it can get messy. And so instead of just saying, okay, we're not going to address that at all, where it can just get more repressed and come out even more painful later, we really empower people to see the unconscious projections and also work with, do somatic practices to tune into their yeses, nos, maybe, or hey, I changed my mind. I said yes, and actually it doesn't feel in alignment for me. And then we work with people to be able to express that. We work with the voice, with communication, to be able to meet that with others and to feel a sense of agency around their decision making of how they want to show up in relationships and community. So I guess in short, because I've gone over time, I'm sorry, but the shadow is impacting all of us, or the shadow shows up for all of us already. And if I just go home alone to my apartment, I have my job and I go to my apartment, it might not come out in the same way it does in community. But the beautiful thing about community is that, yes, it's going to come out and we get to see it and put it on the table and clear it. So we're not carrying unconscious pains around sex or money or power, but we're able to work with it in a supportive container with people who are going to lovingly help us transcend that and co-create something that's going to be a lot more beautiful. So,
Yay.
yeah, Yanni's right. Anyways, I'm going to pass the baton over to you, Dave.
Great.
Um,
One quick, I know I'm
oh,
already over time, but a quick interjection just because Ava did some great talking about money shadow. And I think it's really important to mention that Clear Sky, one thing I'm really proud of with our organization is that, as Ava mentioned, we are a charity, we're a registered nonprofit, and that owns all of the land and buildings. So we don't have
right.
any people or founders who own a mortgage that other people are kind of renting from.
Yeah.
So that is just a huge relief I find in our model from some others where one person holds the mortgage and other people join. So I think that's just really worth mentioning that, it took us some time to get there, but wow, it's a lot lighter. So
It's
grateful
a
for that.
trust exercise. Us and a few other folks bought a house together that we don't own. There's more on that later, but yes, good point. Absolutely. Oh, yeah, I have to ask you questions. Hey, Dave. So how did you come to live in community and what has been an enriching experience and challenge for you?
Yeah, I'm gonna be uncharacteristically brief, I think. And I got here, I was in two situations that I thought were communities in my youth. So in my early 20s, at the end of university in the Toronto area in Ontario, I was part of an activist community, or what I called community network, I call it now. And it was really wonderful and really eye-opening, but that fell apart, had lots of anger and strife. I moved to Victoria, BC, near Vancouver, and became part of a hippie community, lots of play and psychedelics and dancing and food and nature worship, and got burnt out from that also. And one day was sitting in my apartment and said, I want to live in real community, out in nature, and serve through food and develop some kind of meaningful spiritual practice. And lo and behold, the next day, Clear Sky had a posting for a kitchen coordinator. And about 2 weeks later, I was here. That's my version of how I got here. In terms of the enrichment and growth challenge, the first one would be curiosity. So if anyone here studies or worked with astrology, I am a triple Virgo, highly perfectionist, critical, judgmental. Lots of use to those skills if you do them right. And within a year or two of living here, I noticed a huge shift where the default response to something, instead of being critical, judgmental, was curiosity. It was, oh, who is this person? What is this project? What is this opinion? What can I learn from this? So that was a huge shift. It just opened up so much light in the being, and I'm sure made everyone around me a lot happier to be around me. And the second would be communication. Gosh, it's I grew up with two sisters. I'm half Indian, and we just had our own language, and it took me 30 years to realize that. I'm still learning that. And it's really painful to think you're communicating with someone. And as Ava mentioned, community is that group of people who you might not be friends with, or probably wouldn't be friends with, just out in the world. And we all speak different languages. We're all our own country, as Capel used to say. And gosh, learning how to communicate specifically and directly what I'm feeling, what I want, what I'm experiencing it's an ongoing struggle, but that has been very challenging and very, very fruitful.
Cool, thanks. Well, um, okay, building on that, thanks, Dave. How do you find the teachers and Sangha to be invaluable resources on the path?
Gosh, yeah, that would take a whole other hour or two to get into, but in brief, well, it really became clear to me after living and working and studying with spiritual teachers, that I had been wanting that my whole life. I'd always been kind of looking for that mentor, that person I can look up to and follow. I had it a little bit, a coach here and there, that teacher I really got along with in school, some chefs that I worked under, but having a human as a being to model and follow after was just it made so much sense. I almost didn't realize it was happening. And it's just this beacon that a lot of people, take care, Morgan, have lots of different perceptions about what teachers and gurus are. And the best way I like to really describe it is that it's one embodiment of what we're aspiring to in terms of an awakened consciousness or a beacon of light, or many other words for that, spirit, however you want to describe that. And, there's still a human, there's still a person there, but there's much more pure light and consciousness through there that you can see, okay, that's how this shows up in the world, without the baggage, without the resistance, and just being in a good state all the time. And the community around that is, well, as Ava mentioned about the importance of shadow work, many of you might be familiar with the concept of blind spots and personal development. And they're blind. We all, myself included, love to think I can go look at my own blind spot myself, put a mirror behind me and kind of see them on my own. But, for all the benefits that, self-help and do it yourself Dharma might have, there's a lot more information out there than there used to be. But it's very limited. There are some things that you just can't do on your own. You need that community to, you might need five people to say, hey, Dave, your communication skills do not work in this area. Because if I'm out in the world spending time by myself with people that really get me, I might just ignore that one person. But when it's
Yeah.
four, five, six, seven people, it's kind of, okay, I must really have something to work on here. And you just really need community for that. And even if you could do something on your own, it's going to be so much faster with other people.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
it's easier with others.
Amen. Okay, our last question. My last question is around community and intimacy. What does it really mean to live and grow with other humans? And why is it only really community when you can't leave? Can you say more about that, Dave?
Oh, I can. Um, yeah, connection, intimacy, those were huge parts of why I came here. I, spent probably my entire youth kind of longing for connection, both friendship, romantic, everything in between. And it's a huge shift to get out of that Hollywood dreamy, fall in love, have a best friend, get along all the time kind of state, into really the mundane and sometimes nitty-gritty of living with people. Anyone who's been married or in long-term relationships, I'm sure can attest to that. But when you're in community, it's in a way you have, you know, 10, 15 best friend partners in a sense that you're living with and you're constantly you're cooking, you're cleaning, you've got different preferences, how you like your coffee, what time you want to wake up, when you want to be quiet, when you want to be loud. But because of that, you get into a certain kind of connection with everyone. You learn how to take care of different people with different needs and how to be taken care of. And that can be a really big shift. At first, as Ava alluded to a bit, it can feel like there's so many people and I just want to be by myself in my room and it's kind of crazy. And eventually you learn, oh, these people can all make my life better.
Yeah.
And I can be deeply connected with them in a way that, those wonderful friends you might see once a week for a coffee or something, and that's still a meaningful relationship. But when you live with someone, just the depth of connection it's scary, it's vulnerable, it's fragile, it's shaky, and it's much more relaxing on the other side. As was this Epstein? Capella always used to quote. I think it was Epstein. Um, but how does it feel to be seen in such a good hiding place?
Ah,
It's that place of we just want to be seen, and as soon as the light gets shone, we just freeze and hide like a mouse. So how do we learn that it's actually good to be seen?
mm, right. Thank you. Okay, well, speaking of the vulnerabilities of community. We're going to do a short, fun exercise, and then we'll conclude with a Q&A, turn it over to everyone, see if any questions will come up. Thank you so much, Dave. Very
Thank you.
beautifully said. Um, so we're going to do a short exercise. I'm going to open up the whiteboard. Before I do that, I'd like everyone to just take a moment to just 10 seconds to think about if you were to live in a community, if you were to think of your ideal community. We did that lovely meditation at the beginning. What is one thing that you're like, this would be a must-have for me in community? So just think of that one thing that's a must-have for you in community. And then I'm going to turn on a whiteboard. And I think it's opening. What is this? Why is it saying shortcuts? This didn't happen when we were doing our run through. Oh dear, what is that? Oh,
Um,
okay. What?
there we go.
Oh, great. Wonderful.
Has everyone seen the whiteboard?
Give us the thumbs up if you, okay, I'm seeing a nod. Thanks. Thank you. So the whiteboard's quite simple. You can just click on, there's a highlighter, there's a pen, you can put a sticky note. So we're just going to take a couple minutes and you can draw that one thing. So maybe you might say, okay, I need cats. Cats is what I need in community. You can draw a cat, but and then write the word cat. If you draw like me, you might want to also write what it is. And then I'll put a little sticky note saying that I need cats. Woo. Why is it so small? Thanks. There we go. So then we'll just take a moment to all write in the one thing that's important for us.
And you should be able to zoom out if you're short on space.
Right, thank you.
Have fun.
There's no
And
judgment. We
yeah,
can't see who's writing what.
and it's
It's all
not
anonymous.
really possible to draw well in this program, so it's not required.
No assholes. Guess it's getting bigger.
It's important.
We're seeing nature, gardening. There's a tree. So there's a couple, some nice nature themes. Oh, there's something happening around the cat. What's happening? Oh, I think there's more cats. How do I do the grab? Oops. More cats. Yay. Okay. Like it. Wonder if there's any dog people here.
Commitment, clear sense of belonging.
Oh, we have some dog people in the house. Okay, so we'll just take another 10 seconds to wrap up.
Dogs might not agree with the no assholes, but
Ah,
we'll make it work.
shroom. Okay, awesome, beautiful. Thanks, everybody.
Skillful
Shrooms,
dialogue.
shared commitment to growth with humility and openness. What's this one say? Oh gosh, where's the little movie or my little hand? Anyways, there we go. Nope, that's not it. Thanks. Thanks, Dave, for being the
Oh,
integrating with world rather than
hiding.
hiding. Wow. Oh my
Nice.
gosh, look at this. There's some really beautiful things happening here. Okay, a clear sense of belonging, ways to navigate growing or modulating my sense of belonging. So we're just going to, thanks so much for sharing everyone. Okay, so we're just going to take a moment to look at this and just notice what you feel in your body or what thoughts are coming up, sensations so say we're all here, we're co-creating a community together. And how does it feel to see all the things? You have your one thing that you're like, okay, this is what I need in a community. And how does it feel to see the other things that others need in community? And how does it feel when you're like, oh, actually, but that's not a priority for me? Or maybe I don't like dogs. So this is just a simple exercise, but it's a nice little taster to see a sample of what does it mean, what does it look like to start coming together with other individuals, where there might be a shared common vision, but then we all have different ideas of what that looks like. We all want to be in community, but how do we actually shape that? And how do we work with that when we disagree? So,
Screenshot.
oh, thanks, Dave, for that. You're so on it. Ooh, okay, we're just
Grab a
taking a,
screen cap of this so
just
we
getting
can
a,
feel free to take a screenshot yourselves if you want to reflect on this for later.
great. Okay, so then we are going to come back to our regular scheduled programming. And so we'll just open it up to the group now for the sake of time, because we're almost at time. So if you do need to hop off, don't feel bad. You're welcome to hop off. If you want to stay on and maybe share some reflections from that exercise or any general questions, then we would love to hear that.
Yeah,
Sorry,
no, I was just gonna say we're close to time, but we can,
hi,
if
Mariah.
Ava's all right with it, stay a little bit longer. We do want to give you some time for discussion. So yeah, open floor if you want to use the chat, or even better, if you can come on camera and speak, we can hear you.
I graduated high school in 1969, and some of my best friends were hippies, and I've heard of communes, and it just didn't go well. And Dave, you mentioned, and I know a commune is not a community, so it just might be interesting to hear if you have an opinion. First of all, I assume you consider your community to be successful, but what are some of the elements that maybe made your community successful that maybe the hippies messed up when I was in high school?
You want to start, or I
Good
can
question.
jump in?
If you have something coming up
Sure.
for it.
Can tag team this. A few things. Yeah, as I mentioned, that ownership model I think is really important. And from the get-go, Catherine Sensei is really she's our chief visionary officer as her formal title, and she's really a generation ahead of her time. Well,
Mhm.
more than that, but
Yeah.
so we had a no trailer rule pretty early on. A lot of communities are just tents and trailers and things dumped, and we really wanted to make it a nice, permanent, we're trying to make something last. We talk about planning 400 years into the future. So
Mhm.
that forward vision is
Mhm.
key. The shadow integration piece and
Yeah.
kind of back on astrology because she's teaching a course on integrating Saturn, which basically means integrating that discipline and being willing to jump into structure and embrace it. Community, it requires some sense of hierarchy, it requires rules, it requires guidelines, SOPs, standard operating procedures. There's a lot of things that most hippies would not be interested in
Mhm.
that you just need for that long-term success. How to keep your water running and your power on and the wood stoked in the fire and the cats fed, who's at meals and what are your expectations, how much do you contribute to the group.
Mhm.
Those are really, really important. And then underpinning all of that is our shared spiritual practice and
Mhm.
vision.
Yeah.
Um, I've heard of communities that maybe were successful without that. I think they really have a land focus. But in my opinion, I think Ava would agree that that shared spiritual vision, and that can show up in a lot of different ways, is such a focal point. Because when you're at each other's throats and you're ready to leave, that shared vision is what helps you work through that and go through that. Whatever piece of the shadow is fighting with whatever else is coming up, and
Mhm.
say, "There's something bigger here. I want to go through this. I'm not just going to bounce off." And that we wouldn't have lasted 8 years without that. That's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a real commitment to transcending the ego and to helping others transcend the ego. If it's just Ava ego up against Dave, then it's like, oh, Dave is such a jerk and he's always like this. But if I'm actively wanting to not only transcend that in myself, but help him transcend that, then that's going to be, it takes more work. It's not just, it takes it from just being an idealistic concept to actually getting in the mud and working with our sticky unconscious patterns. But you do get through it. And it's I think that's really been a key to success. And as Dave said, it wouldn't be that if we hadn't had such amazing founding teachers that have been paving the way, because I wouldn't have been able to do it on my own, at least. Let's just say. Um, and oh,
I'll see if
question.
we can get you that link
Okay.
about that core. Oh, there we go.
Oh,
Thanks, Mariah. Mariah's on it.
on fire. Thank you. And I'll also drop in if for folks that if you do
Thanks.
need to pop off, here's our email addresses and our website. If you do have questions as well, we're super happy to keep talking, to be in touch, definitely. Any other question? What else is coming up for people from this? James.
I'm curious, if there's anything you could say about like other other sort of current or contemporary influences you guys have, other groups or communities that you feel particularly close to, or speak generally to like how as a community, um, if and to what degree and what kinds of external influences you're integrating and composting and processing.
Super good question.
Love that you said composting. We use that metaphor a lot.
Can I
Yeah,
say
yeah,
too?
please.
Yeah, that's a really wonderful question, James. I would say even like meta modern community being here. Catherine Sensei, she's presenting at the Integral Europe conference this summer in Budapest. And so we've really been drawing on that. We draw on a lot of like Keegan, Leahy, their tools around development, communication, and then even just in, we're always looking at, what are other things that we can learn from and integrate here. So for example, Mariah, may I use you as an example? Is that okay? Okay, thanks. Mariah has started a really wonderful community in Spokane, Washington, and lo and behold, they share a lot of their was it equipment like camping gear, sports gear, arts, all sorts of things. And so then we started doing that here. We said, oh my gosh, we looked around and we realized like I have my own Advil and Band-Aids and cold medicine, and Dave has his own, and so we started co-sharing things like medicine. And so and just small things like that. So that's a small example where we're just always looking around at yeah, what are other folks doing that we can integrate here? Thanks, great question.
Mhm.
Did you have anything to add?
I guess Ava covered most of it. A couple things, maybe one quick anecdote. When I first arrived here, Capella and Catherine Sensei were teaching a course on fifth discipline, which is actually a business course. So they really bring in whatever tool works. So the core of our spiritual lineage is Tibetan Buddhist, Vajrayana, but we work with astrology, as we've mentioned, modern psychology and neuroscience, business development tools, communications tools. We work with the wheel of consent in terms of integrating the shadow and consent. So basically whatever works.
Yeah. Tanaha language course to learn the language. We're on the traditional territory of the Tanaha Nation, which expands from Idaho, Montana, up into Alberta and BC, up in Canada. And so Catherine's really led the way, and some of us here are learning Tanaha, so we can actually speak the language of the land here. So it's really drawing on whatever tools are going to help enrich the community.
Yeah. And there's also a holistic centers network, but within that, it's a group of centers all over the continent, possibly international actually, but there's a lineage centers subgroup. So centers who are really focused not on selling retreats, but on promoting, on focusing on their particular spiritual practices and holding that vision, and being run by Karma Yoga. So, I think for that, we're lucky to have that resource.
Yeah.
And other communities might have similar, groups of, what's the focus of your community, and that might bring up a particular struggle. So that networking is just so invaluable.
Yes, yeah.
We've done money coaching for other centers that might be older and have things to offer in terms of, hosting retreats for decades, but haven't done the money shadow work. And there's lots of great exchanges.
Yeah, that's a great point. It's not just us doing what we're doing, but, I think planetarily there's a community of communities that is really starting to emerge, which is incredible. And that's really the way forward for the planet. Yeah. Chris.
Thanks. So I just want to share that everything that you've been sharing so far is so inspiring to me. Just around the vision and really I wrote the integrating with world rather than hiding from it.
Nice.
Because I see that as like so many like when I consider like monasteries, like showing up at a monastery, I say well, that's really the reason why I wouldn't want to do that is because it's not really um like integrating. I'm curious about just your relationship with the word monastery too there. And yeah, it feels oftentimes I look at places and it feels more like hiding from the world or like creating like a refuge just for the people in the container um, rather than an integration. So I'm just so curious about where just where that vision and inspiration comes from. I have a suspicion that like it's somewhat related to that the fact that Vajrayana is your center point rather than either Theravada or Mahayana Buddhism. And I'm just so like inspired and curious about where the values for this have like how have they formed like where do they come from, and if you could share anything on that, I'd love to hear it.
Thanks, Chris. Appreciate the energy and enthusiasm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Our starting from, our lineage founder was a wonderful man named Namgyal Rinpoche, who I can't get into his history too much, but at some point in his middle life, he was recognized by the 16th Karmapa as a Rinpoche, and he's that incarnation is tasked with taking the teachings to new lands. So the same way Buddhism went from India to Tibet, where it wrapped around Bon, and then China, where it wrapped around Taoism, and then Japan, where it wrapped around Shinto. And it's now in the West, and Capel often said that the language of the West is business. So now it's how do we wrap these teachings in this modern world which is why we've started to shift to calling ourselves integral evolutionists rather than Buddhists, and starting to form, we're calling the Modern Monastery. If I don't know if you want to speak to that a bit, or I can keep going.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Well, yeah, that's such a great question, Chris. And yes. But I think we're really lucky that the teachers have been so focused on that. Like, so as Dave said, so Namdal Rinpoche, our teacher's teacher, he basically spent most of his life traveling the planet and just taking the students would just follow him around. I mean, it was the 70s. It was a lot more economically viable for people to just say, let's all go to India right now. But I think that really, got a lot of folks out of, I mean, it got Capel out of small town Canada. It really got people out into the world and engaging in the world. And as Dave said, the world's changed now. We can't hide from the fact that we do need careers, that, we do need to be financially sustainable. And what's really special is that, so for example, I just came out of a month-long retreat. And so to be in a space where you can go away from the world to do that depth work and to be supported in that. I mean, the community is cooking for me. They're doing, everything to support me to go do that depth work, to just be able to meditate in nature for a month. And then to come out of that, and then we have sister satellite centers around the world. We have a group in Europe that's doing amazing things. And then, so then just a couple days ago, I went to Calgary and stayed with some of our community members that have a house in Calgary and are trying to, that was actually my introduction to these teachings. And so to be able to navigate that space from, okay, I'm going to just be alone in a cabin for a month, and then I'm going to be able to go to the city and be nourished by city energy, to be able to meet people that are out, because I'm not the kind of person that wants to just be completely isolated from the world. I spent majority of my life in the city. And so there is something very nourishing to be out meeting people, meeting new ideas, eating great food, just seeing beautiful art. And so so I think that's an important thing as well, as having the satellite centers. And so it's like you're not totally isolated. We kind of do exchanges as well, where I think, yeah, folks can come here and they can work remotely and be here, and then and someone from here can go stay at their house in England and vice versa. So we can't take credit for it. We're just lucky that we have met some very visionary people.
Really.
Yeah. Anyways, I could go on,
Yeah.
but are there any? Go ahead.
No, it's just, yeah, thanks for the great question, Chris. And we do consider ourselves a modern monastery, which you can get in touch and we can say more about that. But basically, you need both. If you're alone on the mountain of the monastery and you're freaking out and having anger or depression or whatever arise, then we want to work through that and become strong. But we don't want to live there for the next 30 years, because that's not what we believe is really serving the world. We think the form of what it means to be a monastic needs to shift to be of service in the world today. And it's a bit audacious, but that's what our teaching's about. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you can't change the world by just hiding away on a mountain. So I think we're all seeing that right now.
Can change yourself, and that's amazing to do. So no, there's nothing negative about that path. Those are all wonderful paths that do a lot of good work.
Any other questions?
Maybe, yeah.
Yeah, we are coming up to the top of the hour. So maybe just one, if there's any burning questions, we'll leave room for one more question.
I don't know if it's burning, but I'll toss it out there. What is the typical stay? We hear that Ava came here 8 years ago and is still here. Do people stay for 20 years, or do they pass through in a week and a half?
The typical, so basically three I would say are typical. So one, you might come on a group retreat, which someone asked about, like the Astro Dharma astrology retreat we have coming up. That could be a weekend, could be anywhere from 7 to 15 days for a longer retreat. That's more usually in group with classes. It might be silent, meditative or not. You could come and book a cabin and be in silence doing your own practice. We serve you meals and take care of you, and you engage in whatever your spiritual practice looks like. Not much community time. That could be 3 days to 3 months. And we have a 3-month program where you can apply to do our 3-month intensive, take a deep dive into the Modern Monastery, all the tools we've talked about, shadow integration, developing communication, intimacy. Many people stay longer than 3 months, like us,
Yeah.
and some stay in touch. They join online and they come back, once a year for a retreat or something like that.
Mhm.
That's the typical in a nutshell.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Thanks, Leland.
Yeah, 3 days to 3 months to 3 years to
30 years.
Eight.
3 lifetimes.
yeah. Oh,
Great. Well, we should,
oh.
thanks for,
Did Mariah have something to say? I see she unmuted.
I wanted to round out, that was similar to my question that I think would benefit the group to understand that Clear Skies, because of the really forward work that they do, there's a very thoughtful process by which you can become more familiar with and spend longer periods of time there. So there's kind of ideally there would be a sequencing of showing up for something short term, coming for a week. And this is exactly what I did. I had the privilege to come for a weekend, then come for a week, and then do a 3-week program, and then consider, a 3-month experience. But it's not like other places where if you buy it, you can be there, because it's such a intentional and well-structured ecosystem. I encourage you to talk to these beautiful humans who live there full time about how to just, encounter clear sky for yourself.
Thanks, Mariah.
thanks, Maria. Why don't we wrap up there to give folks some transition time? We should have known that to try and schedule 40 minutes, but thanks for showing up.
Yeah.
Appreciate having you and all your great questions. Something, if you want to leave in the chat on your way out, is just a question or an insight you're going away with. And then that'll be recorded so for others could see and for yourselves later on, just to reflect on, something you're taking away from this. And thanks so much. Enjoy the rest of your Limicon and the rest of your Friday.
Oh, can I just add something?
Yeah.
Is one thing we talk about at Clear Sky is just honoring the transitions. So as you move from this space, maybe just take a moment to breathe, take a nice deep breath in and out, and just feel the earth supporting your body. And then just maybe take a note of just noticing your body as you leave this space. And what does your body need as you leave this space? Maybe it's a walk or a stretch or a glass of water, but just honoring that transition from our virtual space.
Great. Yeah. Why don't we end all of our happenings at Clear Sky with prayer, I guess, so we can share those words and have those recorded. So may these wholesome and powerful activities eliminate negativity and ignorance while producing happiness and illumination for the uplifting of the world.
Lovely to see you
Take care,
all.
everyone.
And just a reminder, if you do want to learn more, then
Oh,
Catherine Sensei is presenting tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. Mountain Time. So would love to see you there to continue this conversation with a lot more depth. So lovely to see you. Virtual
Take care,
hugs.
everyone.
Take care.
Thank you.